Hello, my beautiful aliens, and welcome back, or welcome if you're new here to the Authentically Blue podcast. I am your host, Kalson. The time is currently 5:42 a.m., Saturday, the 23rd of September, 2023. Thank you for tuning into this episode. Yes, I know I can hear the cocks outside too, the cocks. It's crazy, but let's do this. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about boundaries. Boundaries. Life is just a classroom. If you really think about it, the lessons never end. A huge part of living life is figuring out who we are, what we like, what we don't like, and all that jazz. This is where boundaries come in. It is so important to have boundaries in your life, and boundaries come in different shapes, forms, sizes. They could be little things, big things. The main aim of having a boundary is to ensure that you are living your life authentically to you and you're comfortable in your day-to-day life. These sounds from the hens or the cocks are sending me. I'm like, editing me is probably like, what the heck? I hope it's an aesthetic sound. I'm so used to recording in my mama's car, and it's very quiet. It's very quiet when I'm recording in there, but hey, we gotta do what we gotta do. So I was talking about boundaries and the different forms of it. I think I should define boundaries before diving in. So boundaries show there's two ways of defining boundaries. There's the literal definition, where a boundary shows where something ends and another thing begins. And then there's the other definition of boundaries in terms of people, where boundaries help you define what you are comfortable with and how you like to be treated by others. There's different types of boundaries, and I'll give you an example. There's loose or open boundaries, and then there's rigid boundaries. If I were to give you an example of open or loose boundaries, I would say these are, for instance, when you share things with people, do you overshare? Do you not share things at all? Or do you please others because you fear rejection or get involved with other people's problems? This can be loose boundaries with yourself. You find yourself in situations where you're not protecting yourself. You're getting involved with other people. You're oversharing things about your life. That's an example of loose or open boundaries. On the other hand, rigid boundaries could look like avoiding close relationships with people. You could avoid being intimate with people, whether that's in romantic relationships or even platonic relationships. The idea of being vulnerable with somebody in your life. I am speaking too fast. I need to slow down. And there's different forms of boundaries. There's different types of boundaries. Moving on, there's different types of boundaries you can enforce in your life. And these 5 I thought of specifically for this episode, but I'm sure there's many more. Number 1, we have financial boundaries. Financial boundaries involve how you handle your money. How do you spend it? What do you prioritize? Do you loan your money out to people, let's say family members or friends if they need it? Or are you the type of person who you don't do that, maybe because it makes you uncomfortable? You don't like asking it back. Maybe you feel like it's a sticky situation. All these things vary from person to person. Then we have emotional boundaries. And this has to do with feelings. It could be you enjoy sharing things with people, like I said earlier, or you prefer not sharing things, or you're an oversharer, or you have a balance where you share when you're comfortable or have figured out your feelings, or maybe you don't share at all. Feelings are complicated, messy, beautiful, and it's up to you to figure out how you handle them, what makes you comfortable with them, and how you want to move forward with your feelings or your emotional side or part of you. Then we have physical boundaries, and this has to do with your body, your personal space, how you live your life physically, whether, for instance, that's exercise. What type of exercise do you like? Some people prefer running, others prefer swimming, others prefer dancing, others prefer yoga. Like, it all varies. Some people don't like exercising at all. again, whatever makes people comfortable. And then there's another layer to this. There's so many layers with each of these things I'm mentioning. But what comes to mind at the moment is it could also be if you're in a relationship with someone or you're friends with someone, are you comfortable hugging them or being physical with them? Whether that's in a public or a private space, that has to do with your physical body. Next up, we have sexual boundaries. And these are the expectations you have on intimacy. What you're comfortable and what you're uncomfortable with varies from person to person. And it's funny because yesterday I was having a conversation with somebody about sexuality, and we're talking about how it's very important to know your boundaries and what you like, exploring it basically, and knowing what you like and what you don't like, because it varies from people, and you have to know yourself in order to enjoy different things. But at the same time, you have to know what you don't like to be comfortable and safe. Moving on, the last type of boundary I have on here is intellectual boundaries, and these have to do with your thoughts and your beliefs, and they vary from people to people, whether this is cultural beliefs, religious beliefs, your values as a person. And it's super important to surround yourself with people who have similar beliefs to you, or who, even if it's not similar, they respect your intellectual beliefs. The reason why I wanted to do this episode on boundaries was because I think I noticed a pattern a few weeks ago where there were some people who found it difficult unpacking boundaries, and I think it varies. I don't want to limit it to one specific place in the world, but the place where I currently am, I think, or the culture specifically, I've seen these people who find it difficult creating boundaries because of how they were raised. And to be honest, it can be quite uncomfortable creating boundaries with people. I'll give you an example. I am somebody who's huge on privacy. So if I'm going through something, first of all, I'm the kind of person who I like figuring things out by myself, and then I share it with people after I've processed it and understand how I'm feeling. And it usually takes me some time to get there. I learned that the hard way, but that's just how I am and how I process and deal with things. And secondly, I don't share things with everybody. That's just not who I am. Like, I can get others to do that. I don't know, people just feel comfortable sharing things with me, and I love it. I don't ever betray or tell other people what they tell me. However, with me, when I tell somebody I trust and care about, hey, this is what happened in my life in this situation, I expect them to die with the secret, okay? That is how deep it is for me. I really value privacy. I really value secrecy. It's like a vault that's locked in and secure. Did you guys hear the birds chirping? That's amazing. Maybe we should do an ASMR episode. That would be kind of cool. But getting back into the topic, I think it's very important to create boundaries with people. So linking this back to the point of me saying this was, recently in my life, I had to reevaluate or recommunicate and reiterate what is important to me in a relationship in my life. There's somebody who forgot how much secrecy matters to me, and they shared something I wasn't comfortable with them sharing, and it really irked me and made me uncomfortable. But I had to sit down with myself and think, hey, I'm either going to communicate this to this person, like, when I share things with you, I expect them to just stay with you because that's what makes me comfortable, and I don't want to share this with other people, no matter who the person is, unless I decide to do it myself, or stop sharing things with this person. And it was a difficult decision, but I had to be honest with myself and figure out what I wanted to do. And that made me think, actually, boundaries is a topic people may know about growing up, However, it's one of those topics that get lost in life. Like yes, it's obvious, but at the same time, it may not be obvious to some people, or you forget about it with just how life is. So, yeah, that's why I wanted to create this episode. In the next and last portion of this episode, I'm going to be talking about the ways in which you can maintain the boundaries in your life. Wow, the sounds are insane outside. Okay, first and foremost, you have to figure out why you want to create these boundaries. What is your why? Why is this boundary you're creating important to you? And this will help you establish and keep these boundaries. Number 2, we have start with a few boundaries. Don't overwhelm yourself with many boundaries, because already creating one can be a huge change for you. For instance, if you figure out you don't like hugging people and you communicate this with your loved ones or people who you may have got physical with before, and you just say, hey, I'm not a huge hugger and I do love you and appreciate you, but I'm going to show you my love differently. That's just one example I could think of in the moment. So start with a few boundaries and then figure out how they work for you. If they don't work for you, you can switch it up. If they work for you, awesome. Next up we have is consistency. Make sure that you are consistent with your boundaries, because if you are not consistent, this confuses people, and the people around you will not respect your boundaries if you're not consistent with it. They'll just think this person doesn't care and it doesn't count. So we don't want things to get murky and messy. We want them to be easy and cool for you and comfortable. Next thing I have is communicate when boundaries are crossed. This is the reason why I thought of this podcast, as I just said. However, if someone crosses a boundary and this person is important in your life, evaluate, is it more important for me to because it's always going to be uncomfortable, but are you comfortable telling this person, hey, I don't appreciate this, I don't know, there's ways you can say it that are respectful. That's the word I'm looking for. There's ways you can communicate when your boundaries are crossed in a respectful manner. You can be, for instance, say, hey, I don't mean to offend you or make you sad or disappointed, but this is how I felt when you did this. Or you don't have to, I kind of did a long-winded way, but you can find ways to communicate with someone in a respectful way. That's what I'm trying to say. I feel like the sentence I just said is kind of long, but you get the point. Make sure you communicate. So if the person who broke your boundaries, you can sever ties with them and you don't really care, that's cool. Do that and keep it moving. But if not, find ways and courage to communicate this with them. Next up, we have boundaries can be created whenever, whatever stage you are in your life, whatever time it is, however deep you are into a relationship or friendship with somebody, it doesn't freaking matter. Boundaries can be created at any point. And a huge thing with this is communicate this with the person. So the example I had was the hugging or even the privacy. Communicate with someone, hey, I recently discovered that I don't appreciate doing this, and I don't like doing this, and I'd appreciate if you respect this. And if this person doesn't respect this, then you know how they think of you or value you. But you can create boundaries whenever and at any point in any situation you are in. Last but not least, I have self-love. Practice it. Having self-love for yourself allows you to enforce boundaries. Don't get me wrong, there are moments when people get negative and get in our head. It's a normal human thing to do, but you've got to remind yourself from time to time that you are worthy of these boundaries and you are deserving. Because if you have a narrative in your head that says you're worthless, you're undeserving, and that you're in this situation, you're going to find it difficult to put boundaries in place that protect you. A lot of it comes down to self-worth and self-value. And hey, I'm sending you love. I believe you can do this. I will end this podcast by saying, give yourself grace. We are always changing, growing, evolving, and forever work in progress. Be honest with yourself, because without honesty, it doesn't work. Trust me. And I know honesty can be extremely hard and difficult, but by being honest with yourself, you're allowing yourself to live a beautiful life, and you're gonna figure this out. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm gonna end the podcast here, sending you love wherever you're in the world. And I hope you enjoyed the ASMR birds and cocks outside. Hence, yeah, goodbye.